Creative Mornings, it has a soft spot in my heart. I was a part of the team for 5 years, so it's kind of weird to be on this side of the event for sure, but super happy to be here. But yeah, this morning, just as a disclaimer, there's nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering about what I'm gonna tell you. Nothing's new, really, but what I'm gonna tell you is my story. That's it, simple as that. That's all I'm gonna do, okay? But before that, I'm gonna tell you my full name, all right? Wow, someone's excited. But before that, before I tell you my full name, I'm gonna need you to inhale a little bit because it's pretty long, all right? So here we go. It's Rafael de Rosa. It's my full name, all right? And if you want a party trick, you can say that 5 times in 7 seconds. I've never tried it, but that's just a guess. But as you know, most people call me Jingo. It's a nickname, yes. Weirdly enough, given to me by my parents. But that's a Filipino thing, too. So that's a story for another day. Anyway, if you want to remember it, it's like bingo, but with a J. That's my spiel. People always screw it up. Django, jingle, you name it. I've heard it all. So I came up with that little spiel right there. So, like I said, Filipino. Was born and raised in this little country, little archipelago called the Philippines. All the way in Southeast Asia. Little trivia before anything else, all right? For my geography geeks out there. How many islands are there in the Philippines? If you're a Filipino, you're not allowed to answer this question. All right? Multiple choice. A, 641. B, 7,641. C, 6,714. Or D, 146. As you can see, I just jumbled the numbers around. Okay, show of hands, who thinks it's A? Oh, just... Okay, quite a handful. All right. B, 7,641. Okay. C? What about D? Vast majority. All right, what's the answer? Drum roll. It's D, 7,641. Put that in your back pocket for... So yeah, lots of islands. More than... Yeah, I think they just... counted like 500 the last 7 or 8 years or something. Yeah, weird. Anyways, so I grew up there, specifically in the south side of Manila, the capital. So it's a big city, 20 million people. And there's my childhood home right there. Thanks, Google Maps. So I can see it every time I get homesick. And I loved growing up there. I lived in a lower to middle class neighborhood. We knew all our neighbors, had lots of friends, and it was just a wonderful time being there. It's had lots of great memories for sure. I spent more than half my life in the Philippines. Did all my schooling there from preschool all the way to college, and I've always been interested in the arts. Like I've always loved to draw. I just never outgrew it, and thankfully I had parents, wonderful parents who supported me through it all. And if you know anything about Asian culture, that's going against the grain. I have a lot of friends whose parents expected them to pursue more traditional routes, you know, lawyers, doctors, nurses. Nothing bad about that. But I was very lucky that my parents were very supportive. Yeah, took me to museums, paid for art workshops, sent me to art school. So I'm very grateful that they paved the way for me to get to my dreams. So yeah, lived there after college, moved here to Indy. Pretty simple, right? Now the question that people always ask me, no matter when it is, where it is, why Indy? Great question. So we're gonna backtrack a little bit. So back in the 70s, Philippines was in incredible political turmoil. We were under dictatorship for over 20 years. We were under martial law, lots of political instability. Thankfully, I had very wise families who were like, let's get out of here. So my uncle, my dad's brother, got a job here in the United States. I think it was in Iowa. I'm not too sure. And back then, it was way easier to get a job overseas. So he was able to get a job, move here, pay his dues, eventually became a naturalized citizen. And as a citizen, you're able to sponsor your loved ones back home. So he did that for my grandparents. Grandparents did the same thing, moved to Indianapolis. I don't know why still, but they moved to Indy, pay their dues and all that, became citizens and gave that option to the rest of our family. And my parents, being the wise people that they are, cashed in on it. And they were like, let's do it. It's a big risk, but everything's so uncertain back home that it's worth a shot. So they took the chance. That was around the 80s. There's me. Mommy's little activist. This was around the time we overthrew President Marcos. And this was the day we installed the first woman president in Asia, Corazon Aquino. And yeah, I got my merch. That hand sign, it's supposed to be an L, but I was 2 years old, so I didn't know any better. L stood for Laban, which meant fight. It can also be liberation. So yeah, looked like a cute little picture, but I had no idea what was going on around me, for sure. So yeah, and fast forward, moved here, 2004. That's how long it took. From the petition all the way to me moving here. That's how long that whole process took. So I moved here. Just to give you some context, again, this is where I grew up. I moved to the south side of Indianapolis, right? So pretty different. Manila, a little bit chaotic. Houses are literally feet from each other. Indy had like sprawling lawns and backyards, which I'd never seen before. In fact, I just learned how to mow last year. Kind of embarrassing to admit that, something that teenagers learn how to do. But yeah, lots of things that I had to adjust to for sure. It was quite the shock. And yeah, it was a little lonely too. Didn't know anyone. I was fresh out of college too, so I had no clue how to go about life for sure. I'm sure a lot of you know how that feels. And then for me to be uprooted to a strange land such as Indianapolis, that was quite the cultural shock for sure. But I had to grow up real fast, so I'm like, I should get a job. So trivia number 2, and last one, I promise. What was my first job in America? Multiple choice. A, starving artist. Myth, am I right? B, parking attendant. C, museum info desk guru. Not an official name. Or D, Asian grocery store clerk. I'm gonna know who my real friends are. So okay, who says A? Starving artist. B, parking attendant, okay. C, what about D? Everyone's like, I don't know. Is it because I'm Asian? I get it, it's okay. Drum roll. It's actually D. Asian grocery store clerk. And that was kind of a tactical move for me, because again, I was feeling pretty lonely, and I had to find a place where I felt comfortable and I felt a little bit at ease. I was definitely looking for something a little bit more familiar. I was so far away from all that I knew, from family, from friends. I could at least be surrounded by food that I know. So yeah, worked as a grocery store clerk at an Asian store. I did work for a call center too. I got yelled at every single day. And yes, I was a museum information desk guru. That's what they called me, but really it was for the information desk in a museum. And this whole span of years was about 8 years. And I'd given up, really, as far as being an artist goes. I hadn't drawn in years, and I was basically settling, really. Like, I guess this is the American dream, which was okay. You know, I shouldn't say I was content, but I was just coasting, really. Until I was browsing around the internet, and there was a job opening for this company called Author Solutions in Bloomington, Indiana. And won't you know, they were looking for an illustrator, a full-time illustrator. And I could not believe my eyes. It's hard enough to find a full-time illustration job anywhere, much less in Bloomington, Indiana. And I didn't think it was real. So I took the chance, I applied for it, I gathered up the worst portfolio that anyone could gather. No one should do this. I even put high school work, college work, again, span of 8 years. And I hadn't drawn in years. So really terrible, terrible portfolio. But I got the job. After 2 interviews, got the job and learned a lot there for sure. It was, I felt like I was actually going somewhere. But not in a lot of cases, because again, I hadn't drawn in years. Everyone had tablets. I had to learn how to draw digitally. So I made pretty terrible work, and I'm about to show you that. Don't take photos. So here's my first work. Yeah. Not great. But I've also learned to make bad art. I needed to make bad art to be better. So what did I do? Again, I moved to Bloomington for this job, by the way. Moved there, didn't have any friends. Again, didn't have a social life. So what did I do? I stayed in the office after hours. So I worked there 8:30 to 4:30, and from 4:30 to 9, I would stay there working on how to learn digital art. So my tablet was my friend, really. That seems really sad. But got a little better, you know, there's some promise. They're still not great. But yeah, I got the chance to work on a voice there too. So yeah, worked on it. And right around that time too, Butler University was in the Final Four. Does anyone remember that? Yeah, go Dogs. And if you know anything about the Philippines, we are obsessed with basketball. It is like a religion back home. And I loved Butler basketball. I just loved how the way they played, and I was over the moon when they were in the Final Four. So just for practice, I'm like, oh, let's make little cartoons of the dog. Yeah, that was fun to make for sure. And then I made these little illustrations and just posted them on my Facebook. You know, put them on my what do you call it? The cover photo. Yeah. And it went kind of viral in Butler. Yeah. Which was weird. I didn't know what to do. And eventually, it got the attention of this gentleman named Michael Kaltenmark. Michael Kaltenmark, if you guys aren't familiar, is the mastermind behind Butler Blue 2, who was super famous at the time. He was on ESPN, all these sports shows because of Butler basketball. And I think they started the whole pets, you know, having social media revolution. So he got wind of this, and he reached out to me. Mind you, we've never met. He reached out and he said, hey, Jingo, saw your illustrations, super fun. We love them. And we have a children's book that's been written, but there's no illustrator. So if you want the job, it's yours. And I'm like, what? Again, I've never met this guy. All right? He doesn't know who I am. I could have been a jerk, you know? But he believed in my work enough to reach out and say, hey, I think you could do this. So again, he took a chance on me. But me working in publishing, I thought that this might be a problem. So I talked to my boss over at Author Solutions, who was wonderful, Kelly Barrow. I loved her. I said, hey, boss, I'm being offered a job, a contract job for a book. Is this something that I could do while I'm working here? And she's like, no, not really. It's a conflict of interest. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's a bummer. About a week later, I quit my job. I'm not sure it was the wisest decision, practically speaking, but I just felt it in my heart that I had to do it. I was at Author Solutions for 2 years, best full-time job of my life. I'll always remember it. But I just felt like I needed more. I need more creative freedom. I need to work on projects that I enjoy doing. So yeah, I quit my job. And I'll tell you what, the adrenaline of that is indescribable. Yeah, it was like jumping off a plane without a parachute, basically. So I quit my job, worked on the book, and then that's when Good Boy Blue came out. Thanks. Yeah, super enjoyed this book. They gave me the creative freedom to do everything. Art direction, design, layout, illustrations. I did all of it, and wow, it was something I'll never forget. We're working on a second one right now too. So yeah, we'll walk through some pages. That's when Blue first came to Butler. That's when Blue first saw Hinkle Fieldhouse, and that's when Blue first walked in at Hinkle Fieldhouse. The end. So yeah, it was such a fun book to make. So yeah, we got it published, wrapped the book. It was a hit, and then I was like, what do I do next? I had nothing on my plate. I was like, oh, is this what it's like? Like after this, I have to look for something. So I did some small jobs here and there. I took some part-time jobs as well. And along the way, I got another email from this organization that I've never heard of before. It's Arts for Learning. Some of you are here this morning. I got an email from this lady by the name of Stephanie Haynes. Shout out, Stephanie, I know you're in here. She reached out and was like, hey, love your work. Have you ever thought about teaching? I don't think I ever told her this, but in my mind, I was like, no, heck no. No, not in the books, for sure. So I said that in kind of a nice way via email. And she was like, no, it's okay. We'll give you the tools. We'll give you the tools. We'll train you. And we'll go from there. I don't know what's happening. Anyways, I'll just keep talking. So. Okay. Oh, here we go. I'm just not gonna touch anything here if something's loose. But anyways, dove in, and it wasn't instant, but I just fell in love with teaching. I fell in love with the students. I fell in love with the prospect of talking about art to young people. And yeah, my love affair with teaching started. And it's something that I didn't expect that I would do and still do. So somewhere in between, still lived in Bloomington. I moved to Chicago for a little bit too, then found my way back to Indianapolis. Again, another reset for me. So things were gaining momentum. I had projects, I got teaching, but then something was missing. There was a part that I felt disconnected from my city. So I just decided to just show up a little bit more. My good friend Curtis told me about this thing called Craft Brew Doodle Crew. Hell yeah. So I reached out to Aaron Scamahorn, the godfather of the group, and say, hey, I kind of want to join. Is that cool? And he said yes. Never met him before, so I'm very thankful that he said yes. So what we do is we draw, we drink beer. If you could see the background, we draw a lot of gross stuff too. But it's a lot of fun, and it's the first time that I got to actually sit down and get connected with artists in the city. And of course, I showed up at Creative Mornings one morning. I still remember my first one. It was No Stranger, I think back in 2015. And I just loved going there, and eventually got to help out with the group. And yeah, again, Creative Mornings has a soft spot in my heart. And because of these, being connected with people, I think that was the final piece for me to slowly start gaining awareness of who I am as an artist. So I have what I call my 3 C's. It's commercial, classroom, and community. And all 3 of them inform one another. I'm gonna breeze through some of them a little bit. So commercial, I do some commercial illustration work. I'm gonna show you some illustration. Not all of them are commercial, but they're all illustration work. Again, I'm gonna breeze through them. I don't want this to be a portfolio show. So here's one for the NCAA. Here's one for the Chicago Summer Reading Program back in 2020. Remember that year? Me neither. Here's one for Indiana City Brewing. If not for Craft Brew Dual Career, I wouldn't have had this gig. Butler, had a great relationship with them for sure. There's Byron. Hey, Byron. And a couple years ago, we did a book called ABCs in Indie. Yeah, that was fun to make too. And a little sneak peek, we're doing 1, 2, 3s in Indie. If you are a side door bagel fan, you'll probably recognize this. Shout out to Josh and Emily who do amazing things. Here's another spread from that. It's the President Benjamin Harrison site. And one of the more recent projects is for the Pacers. Again, basketball is like a religion in the Philippines. So this is literally a dream come true, all right? Here's proof. All right? Yeah. So the Philippines back then, they loved the Chicago Bulls, loved the Chicago Bulls. I hated them. I still do. And I got made fun of a lot because of that. So if only the Pacers knew what I went through, man. Classroom. So again, teaching, big part of who I am, for sure. So I've taught for Arts for Learning, still do. Art Center as well. And recently I'm involved with these institutions. I teach at both Heron School of Art and Design, Butler University. And I'm on the board for the Fine Arts Department at Ivy Tech Community College. They're doing amazing things over there as well. Final part, community. I would argue this is the most important part of it all. It's so easy for us artists to just hole in our studios and work on our craft, which nothing wrong with that, for sure. But again, it gets lonely and it's easy to get disconnected, for sure. So some things that I got involved in. This is in Rushville, Indiana. Man, I love small town Indiana. I'm serious, I do. Some people are like, what's wrong with you? No, I do. It's so different from what I'm used to. Again, I grew up in a city, so going to a small town, it's like a retreat for me. So this is they reached out to me to design this trailer where they can engage the community. So they take these to parks. They have games. They have an inflatable screen for movies. And yeah, I've been to Rushville so many times, and I love going there. I love the people of that town as well. Let's see. I also got to help out with this little thing called Art Speak with some buddies of mine. It doesn't exist anymore. It's a 2020 casualty, unfortunately. Yeah, we had a blast just hosting artist interviews and amplifying artist voices in the city. I was pretty proud of the work that we did there, and I always will. But yeah, it was such a good time to just get connected with the artist community too. I'm still involved with Urban Sketchers in Indianapolis. We get together every month. We sketch around town, sketch around the city. So there's some of the sketches that I've done with them. And it just helps me notice things a little bit more. Even the most obscure places in town, I get to notice. And this just propelled my love for sketching and just documenting the world that I see. So this is in Yosemite, that's in Breckenridge. I also have a little sketchbook whenever my wife and I travel. So this is when we went to Olympic National Park a couple years ago, and that beautiful afternoon. It just teaches me to slow down a little bit. Just sit down, slow down, notice things, and just enjoy the time that we have together. Here's one from our honeymoon. This is in Savannah, Georgia. If you've never been, it's incredible. We went to this coffee shop every single day. We just ate tacos and drank coffee. That's what we did on our honeymoon. So yeah, it just taught me just to experience life a little slower, because I tend to be a little bit fast-paced and not rest and not slow down, and sketching has taught me that. Speaking of things that I've learned, what else have I learned so far? Lots of things, but a handful of things I'll tell you. Number one, people make the place. When I first moved here, I dreaded coming to India. I mean, for good reason, because I came in the spring and it was freezing. It was 50 degrees, and I was wearing gloves. I'm serious, I was. And people looked at me like, man, he has no idea what's coming for him. People make the place, obviously. Like, you guys are here. You make this city better because of what you do. And a lot of people here in this room right now make this city better. And I'm really thankful for that. Number two, it's taught me to take chances. And it's mostly people who took chances on me. Yeah, take chances on yourself. Bet on yourself, for sure. But take chances on other people. Because if it weren't for those people, I wouldn't be here today. If my family didn't take the chance on me to send me here, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. If Michael Kaltenmark didn't reach out to me and take a chance on me, I wouldn't have the courage to quit my job. If Stephanie Haynes wouldn't have taken a chance on me, I wouldn't have known the joys of teaching. And if my wife hadn't taken a chance on me, I would have missed out on the greatest adventure of my life, for sure. Speaking of taking chances, take the long road, too. When I look back at my life so far, every significant thing that has happened has been all about the long game. I think about the process of immigration. It's almost 2 decades from filling out the paperwork to setting foot in America. Think about my journey to get to being an artist. It took 8 years. And it's fine. It's good. It's good. It taught me to endure. So yeah, take the long road. You know, so as they say, you take shortcuts, you get cut short, and I truly believe in that. And finally, art is a service. That's something that I've truly learned. I fully believe that our greatest purpose is to serve others. And we can do that with our jobs. And we should, because it takes up 40 hours of our week. Who is this criminal that made that up? Yeah, we should lift each other up. And we should serve others and live for others, because this is our greatest purpose. And I try to take that to heart, and it goes back to my 3 C's. When I'm doing work for clients, how do I care for them? How do I make their companies, their brands better? When I'm in the classroom, I tell my students in the classroom, I want you to be better than me one day. That is when I know that I've done my job. And in my community, how do I make this great city of Indianapolis better? Just by being an artist. I ask myself that every single day, because this is where we live and this is where we thrive. Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat. Thank you very much for having me this morning.